Hi everyone, Kai here with you today, and I have a new to me stamp set from My Favorite Things called A Tweet Hello, and I just think it's the cutest stamp set ever. And of course anything with birds, I'm smitten. So I decided what I'd do with this is do something kind of whimsical. So I did a light wash background on Fabriano watercolor paper, and then I drew in my tree and then just painted it with some of my watercolors. I used a Venetian red, believe it or not, mixed in with some burnt umber, and then I'll touch up that color as I proceed. But what I'm doing here is I'm arranging the birds. I've already done these ahead of time. They've been heat embossed with clear embossing powder and watercolored with Zig watercolor brushes. And now I'm just going to arrange them on my panels to where I'm going to want them to sit before I proceed with the rest of the card. So, and then I'll do the stamping. I'll stamp the bird as well in the position that I want it to be and go ahead and color it again. Not the same as what I've done the birds here, but I'll watercolor it again with the Zig brushes. So I'm just arranging them, and just to let you know what I've used for the the Zig brushes, I should say. They're light carmine and scarlet red and bright yellow, orange, and I've also used the light green and the emerald green at a later point. And again, for my branch that I did to add more dimension, I added in some mid-brown with the zigs later in the card. But here I'm just replacing the birds with the stamps, and then I'll pick them up with the lid of my Misty. I'm in my mini Misty. And I'm using Ranger Archival ink and jet black to do the stamping. I do several passes to get good results. I then, at some point, I don't know if I've shown it on the video or not, but I do use my Micron pen to darken up the legs and the tufts once I'm done the card. But here I'm just doing the stamping. And then I proceed to color the birds, not like I've done the ones that'll end up on the top, but because they'll be on foam dots, I also color the ones underneath using the orange and the bright yellow and the orange, I think. Oh, and scarlet red. And light carmine. So I just lay down my color on my mat, and with a damp brush I'm just applying it. In case you're wondering about my mat, I cut it into 4 so that it's easier for me to use. And I just go around and color up all the birds. That's my bird that you just heard. She's sitting beside me watching the video. And you're my inspiration, aren't you, Cece? So I'm going to add in some orange, just in case somebody peeks in underneath that foam dot. You just never know. Or if they take the bird right off. it's I can never figure out how long to leave in a portion of showing you a portion of what I've done. This is a 50-minute card put down to 13 minutes, and it's still hard being new to this video stuff to know what you would like to see and how much of it you want to see. I found when I was watching videos, which I still do, I look at the techniques that they use, how they do it. So I hope I'm showing enough of that, and if I'm not, please let me know. Now here I'm going to add branches just falling down from the top. This is a whimsical card, so you won't see a tree. So I just stamp in this little leaf comes with the stamp set. And I'm using Twisted Citron ink from Tim Holtz Distress Inks and Twisted Citron. And I go across the whole top of the card panel. And then I lay down some of the Twisted Citron on my craft mat and pick it up with my watercolor brush. I'm using my brushes are Escada brushes, and to do this I'm using a number 6. I also, when I want, that's a tiny leaf, so when I add some more color to it, I'm using my number 2 brush just to make it easier to get into those tiny little spots for me, but normally I'm using the 6 or the 8 in case you want to know about it. Now I'm bringing out the light green to add into the leaves to get more dimension. You'll see as I'm doing it how the panel changes in depth. And I'm changing brushes to the number 2 here. Although I take art classes, I take watercolor classes and have been for almost 3 years now. My teacher wants me to take drawing classes, and so far no, don't want to do that yet. But after drawing that tree branch, maybe I should be. Everything was going okay for my whimsical little branch until I did that little dip down to the bottom right. Anyway, it is what it is. So you can see now that the depth, the little leaves falling down have really changed in how they appear in depth. So adding the darker color in with the Twisted Citron just gives it more interest. So I continue doing that, and then I am ready to, the next step I think, what I do is I'm adding in the flowers. Now these are also included. There's 2 different kinds of flowers in the stamp set. I'm using the bunch where there's 3, and there's also a single one that's bigger. But I use the bunch, and of course, being a whimsical card, I remind you, there are no stems to all of this. So I'm using Ranger, I think it's a rose color. It's new to me. I think it's called Tea Rose from Ranger. the Wendy Vecchi. I really like these archival inks. But I'm just doing it in the lighter color because I'm going to again watercolor with the Zig brushes, using the same colors that I used on the birds. And I change up the color. I'm using different ones. They're not all the same, whether it be the orange or the light carmine or the I've even thrown in scarlet red in there, I think. And I'm going around adding in the color. And then once I'm finished adding the color, I add in emerald green to the mix to do the centers. I tried the light green, but it didn't show up the way I wanted it to for my center, so I used the emerald green instead. And then I went over it with Nouveau jewel drops in the green anyway, so I don't know why I did that, but I did it. And now I'm going to add some more depth to the tree trunk, just with my Zig brush in mid brown. And then I'll add more light green to the leaves, and I also add a darker green to the stems. And this video will end rather quickly, you'll find. So ahead of time, I'll tell you that once I've styled and put on the birds, I go back over the flowers with Wink of Stella and clear. And I also add to the breast of each bird some Wink of Stella. And then I drop in some Nouveau crystal in the green into the flower center. And I add some pink Nouveau crystal drops in amongst the leaves at the top to finish the card. And if you would like to receive this card in the mail, if you leave me a comment, I'll have my neighbor pick from the comments as to who will receive it and get in touch with you to get your address and send it off to you. But I'd like to see some comments. That would be nice. It's really hard when you're new doing videos and you're new to it. But I hope you enjoyed watching this process of this card. And I'll try to get better with my videos in the future. I really appreciate you watching. Bye for now.